Hello. As a follow-up from the previous video on sensitivity and mediocrity, we have received a question from Prashant who asks, Sir, is sensitivity the one that has something to do or relate with our random emotions? As I see mostly in my surroundings, the ones who are more emotional are considered a bit sensitive as well. Okay. So this is a very valid point that you have raised, Prashant, because it is true that at the level at which our surroundings are, or how generally, or as a common knowledge, how sensitivity is looked at, is how someone perceives their senses, their general senses, as we know that the five senses of maybe touch, taste, smell, hearing, vision. So, someone who is very adept with them, someone who uses them a lot, or someone who is very affected by those, or at least is able to consider them, can be considered as sensitive, but only at an initial stage of understanding. What sensitivity we are talking about is something more deeper. We'll get to it. But before that, you talked about someone being emotional as one who is also considered as sensitive. So that brings in the topic of, does feeling or emotionality come under sensitivity? To an extent, one can say that someone who is too much into their emotions or feels a lot, considers or keeps thinking about how they feel, is emotional. Someone who is very much lost in their emotions or feels a lot, as sensitive, you can call that. But right here, but here the sensitivity which we are talking about, which Jiddu Krishnamurti Sahab is referring to, is not the one which is only limited to the sensitivity of feeling or sensations, because feelings and sensations we all are capable of. Everyone has the capacity to become sensitive in the realms of their sensations and their feelings. But the sensitivity that is being talked about here in the previous video is the one which is actually factoring in all the inputs of feelings, senses, and it is making intelligent decisions out of it. It is very common, or it is not that great of an achievement to be sensitive regarding your feelings, but to make an internal process which really thinks about what is happening, where are these stimuli coming from, and what are we doing about it. Having that inner mechanism, probing into it, looking beyond the general answers or the general definitions that we have given to the problem, and then coming up a solution of our own, which can be anything. It could be an intelligent answer, a response, or it could be a way of dealing with it for a collective. That is the intelligence which Krishnamurti is talking about. That is the sensitivity that one has to cultivate. Because just getting emotional about a certain thing or feeling in some positive or negative way about a situation might not necessarily get you out of the rut. When Jiddu Krishnamurti he talks about mediocrity, he is talking it with regards to trying to get out of the cycles of mediocrity and try to achieve something which is beyond these cycles, move into the zone of excellence. And that is not possible without your internal processes being so primed that you are able to find a way out of the matrix of mediocrity. And the issue that you have raised about our random emotions is a very important issue, because one, if they look at their lives with care and detail, finds that much of our time, or many of our instances that we see ourselves, the struggles that we face, are mostly arising out of our emotionality, random thoughts and random emotions. Be it infatuation of any kind, be it some kind of a clinging, be it some kind of a anger, or some kind of a petty fight of egos. Everything and anything that we indulge ourselves in our usual lives can be traced back to our problem of over emotionalizing most of our happenings. It is one thing that happens to us, but we often do make mountains out of the molehills that we face in our lives. And this is a great reason behind this is because of a misinterpretation of our emotions and our senses. Many a times we are not able to read our emotions. Many a times we are not able to get a grasp of what our senses are really trying to tell us. There have been many techniques that have been suggested by the great saints. Maybe call it yoga, call it vipassana, even breathing techniques. And why saints or learned ones used to recommend all these techniques is to get a hold or a grasp of one's physicality, of one's body. It starts from the sthul, that is the gross, which is the physical body. And once you try to understand what your senses do, how they work, how they function, maybe through yoga, maybe through certain breathing, maybe through vipassana, where you look at how your body is functioning, you get a grip over it. And once this journey begins in the physical realm, it slowly you go onto your thoughts, you go onto your emotions, which are a bit more subtler than what you experience in the physicality. And that's how you understand what is happening, because many a times there is a big gap between what we are experiencing and what is really happening to us. It is not without any reason that it is said that it is one thing to experience pain, and it's another thing altogether to suffer. So there are merits to these techniques. The only thing that is to be considered is that it is not the end point by any means. The sensitivity that we have talked about, that I talked about in the previous video, is something which is arising, which starts from here, but it does not end there. It is just the starting point. Emotions or senses are just a starting point that lead towards sensitivity.